Week 4 in the NFL. It's the worst. The best for the Tank Bowl. The greatest week of tank bowling ever. The prize? A chance to draft USC quarterback Caleb Williams. The winner will be the loser. The loser? Probably Caleb Williams for getting stuck with either of these two pitiful franchises. The Broncos travel to Chicago this Sunday in a matchup of two 0-3 juggernauts, two teams that have been thoroughly adept at losing. The Bears were so bad on Sunday that Fox cut away from the game even though ratings machine Taylor Swift was on their broadcast. And the Broncos, well, their defense gave up 70 points in Miami. I've pretty much said everything I can about that game.
70 points?
Or maybe I should just keep making content about it because it became my first million-viewed video ever. Thanks, Denver. Your incompetence is putting my child through college. This loss was so embarrassing, Broncos fans switched teams mid-game and started celebrating with Dolphins fans. I don't blame them.
This is Owen Wilson, and this right here is 0-3 Wilson.
Now somehow the team that just allowed 70 points is a road favorite in the game against the Bears. And it's hard to explain, but I kinda understand why. Denver's defense is abominable.
Broncos superfan Brandon Perna does a slow, dramatic neck crack.
But Chicago's offense has been almost as bad. Whether you want to blame the Bears' offensive struggles on Justin Fields or the coaching or both, it is always both, by the way, they've put on a masterclass on how not to move the ball or score points. It's like they're allergic to the end zone. Justin Fields' net passing yards have gone down in each game. This was a Bears offense that was supposed to be markedly improved thanks to the addition of DJ Moore, and he's been their most productive receiver by far, leading the team with a whopping 11 receptions. Somehow Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool have only combined to catch 8 passes for just over 100 yards this season. The only player with 100 yards on the ground, neither of their running backs. No, it's Justin Fields, who cracked 1,000 on the ground last year, but is only averaging 34 rushing yards per game so far, which has essentially been negated by taking 13 sacks. That's a nice way of saying everything that was supposed to be better this season for the Chicago Bears and their offense is somehow worse. Their defense hasn't been better either. They've allowed the second most points in the NFL through 3 games. And I'll give you a guess, a second here to guess which team has allowed the most points this year. It's the Broncos with over 40 points a game. That's what a 70 steamer will do to your average. Now the Bears cannot rush the passer. 59 different players in the NFL have more sacks than the Chicago Bears' entire defense, which is currently racked up 1 sack this season. Jordan Love literally fumbled in their first game, and not only did it not turn into a sack, it almost became a Packers touchdown. Denver's defense, on the other hand, got all of their sacks in week 2 against the Commanders, bringing down Sam Howell 4 times in the first 3 quarters of that game. The other 9 quarters, not a single sack. And I'm not sure Tua even touched the ground last Sunday. I don't even think they had to wash his jersey for the next game. It was so clean. A stat that went unnoticed from the game was Tua's average time to throw was actually
unlimited.
If the Dolphins want to keep him out of concussion protocol, they should just play the Broncos every week. Vance Joseph's defense might actually be the cure for CTE. Maybe that's what happens, though, when your defensive coordinator suddenly resigns under mysterious circumstances and you have to deny that Hallis Hall was raided by the FBI and that former Bear Peanut Tillman was doing the raiding. Unfortunately, Denver's defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, has yet to resign. For whatever reason, coaching a defense that allows 70 points in a single game is not a fireable offense.
But the defense missed a zillion tackles. It might be one of the worst tapes I've ever seen in my life in terms of a defensive tape, with the lack of effort, the lack of intensity.
However, I do think the equivalent to allowing 70 points against a track team of an offense would be less embarrassing than allowing the Bears to put up 30 points, which they haven't done since week 10 of last season. a game they lost by 1 point naturally. Speaking of points, today's episode is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. And this week, they are matching your first deposit up to $500, which is an exclusive offer for new customers. All you have to do is sign up at Underdog with my link below or my code THATSGOOD and make your first deposit. They also just added the best ball resurrection, so maybe injury or some surprise roster depth ruined your best ball mania drafts from this summer. Well, you can redeem yourself right now. This is a $10 entry, 300 grand in total prizes, and 30 G's to first place. It's the same best ball format, so your best score each week is used. Go redeem yourself. The pick'em games are now live in all of these states, the yellow ones, and with 5-player pick entries, you can 20x your money. Congrats to everyone who picked higher on any Miami player ever last week. Again, link below, code THATSGOOD, sign up now at Underdog. All right, let's talk about some bright spots for the Bears and Broncos. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard to find one for the Bears. I think their best quality as a team is their rush defense, which to this point is allowing just 3.5 yards per carry, 8th best in the league. Look at that, you might be doing something all right, Chicago. But when you really scrutinize that number, it looks a lot better than I think it really is, because every team that's played them so far has run the ball at least 32 times, which means they've just been grinding out the clock. I'm assuming their yards per carry has been deflated because teams are kneeling so much against them. Now, Denver actually has a couple bright spots. I know, maybe that's the orange shaded glasses as a Broncos fan. But until the Miami game, there were a couple little nuggets we were excited about that were not our basketball team. I can say with extreme confidence that none of the bright spots are on defense. No bright spots on that side of the ball. Just a complete abyss, a black hole that sucks up opposing running backs and warps them into the end zone. Oh hell, actually, let's just call it the warp zone from Mario Brothers. Yeah, Denver used to have the no-fly zone, now we have the fucking warp zone. But Russell Wilson, he's been good. Not great, but merely good. A massive step up from last year, trust me. A lot of people have been pointing out that his numbers have looked eerily similar to Pat Mahomes, and Wilson might have been able to best Mahomes in a couple categories if he wasn't having half of his touchdown passes called back for ticky-tacky BS penalties. Have you been victimized by an NFL official? Well, it's time for you to throw a flag on the refs with my Fuck the Refs coffee at BenchwarmerBrew.com. Russell Wilson, since this moment, might actually be the most unlucky quarterback in the NFL. He's the only QB who could play better than Patrick Mahomes statistically and still lose every single game. The best player on Denver's offense has been rookie wide receiver Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma, the guy that will either convince Caleb Williams to come to Denver or warn him to turn around and stay in school, like an old mechanic in a horror movie. Not only does Mims have a 45-yard punt return and a 99-yard kick return for a touchdown, Mims is leading the Broncos in receiving yards with 189 despite only having 9 targets and 7 receptions this year. That means he's averaging 28 yards every time he catches the ball. And here's the best part. They won't fucking play him. Mims is only averaging 16 snaps a game on offense. It's not like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are so good that you can't take Mims off the field. Jerry Jeudy missed week 1 for hell's sake. I've said a lot of F's, so I'm going hell. Denver's receivers have combined to break exactly 3 tackles this season. 3. As I've explained in previous videos, the Dolphins skill players broke 24 tackles in 1 game against Denver's defense. Javonte Williams has broken 4 tackles on his own, but none of the other running backs have managed to evade 1 defender. Ultimately, like the odds setters, I think the Broncos win this game and emerge as the long-term losers. Despite losing by 50 points last week, they actually have a better point differential than the Bears, who have been outscored by 59 this season. Justin Fields' total win percentage with the Bears, just 18%. Meanwhile, old Russell Wilson has won 22% of his starts in Denver. Impressive, I know. That's slightly more than 1 out of every 5 starts. We get a win. Chicago is also on a 13-game losing streak. That's much worse than Denver, who's managed to win 2 out of their last 13 games. Also, Denver was only behind 25 points at halftime last week, while the Bears were down 34. That's the reason Miami had to keep their foot on the gas, because they were afraid the Broncos might catch back up. Congratulations, Chicago. I think you lose this game by a final score of 24-27. Will Lutz nails a field goal at the buzzer, and you're one step closer to the first overall pick. Thanks for watching. Wait, what? There's someone else? There's someone else in the way? Oh God, no. Oh, you're telling me this isn't the only matchup of winless teams this weekend? Jesus Christ, I cannot look. The NFL is too shitty. Yeah, that's right. We also have the stellar matchup between the 0-3 Vikings and the 0-3 Carolina Panthers. It's going to be Kirk Cousins versus Bryce Young, who was last seen lining up behind a guard on Monday Night Football. He got clowned pretty hard for that one, but you know who else lined up behind a guard when he was a rookie? John Elway. And Kirk Cousins, actually. Actually, Kirk Cousins did that last season, his 11th year in the NFL. As long as you're not lining up underneath the American flag like 28-year-old Brandon Weeden, I think you're gonna be okay. Now, I don't believe that this game will dictate who actually gets the #1 overall pick. I think the Vikings are too good on offense to let that happen. Also, it can't happen for the Panthers because their #1 overall pick would actually just go to the Bears. There's a real shot that the Bears get to rebuild with the help of the 1st and 2nd overall pick next season, which means they could draft Caleb Williams and perhaps even Marvin Harrison Jr. Or they could draft Caleb Williams and Drake May, make them fight to the metaphorical death in training camp and just trade away whichever one doesn't earn the starting gig. The Minnesota Vikings will probably win this game. They've gotten brutally close to winning 2 games this season, thanks to the second most productive passing game in the league and the 3rd best offense overall. It just so happens that they fumbled the ball 7 times through 3 games and have managed to lose all 7 fumbles. That's vintage Minnesota Vikings luck right there. The only thing that's harder to do than lose 7 fumbles is give up 70 points. The Vikings are actually top 5 in pass protection per analytics that I don't completely understand, but they're not running the ball very well, putting everything on Kirk Cousins' Cole's decorated shoulders. And to Kirk's credit, all he's done is led the league in passing TDs, and he hasn't even played the Broncos defense yet. Second is obviously Tua in that category. Now, the fact that they've gotten elite quarterback play and have yet to win a game this season says just about everything you need to know about the Vikings. The Vikings got outscored last year and still won 12 games. A lot of people said that would come back to bite them in the ass this year, and it really has, because they've lost all 3 games by a single score. Denver was incredible in close games back in 2015. And now God has spent the last 8 years punishing them for it. Oh, I'm sorry for being clutch, God. I didn't realize that was a mortal sin that lands you in football hell for the rest of frickin' eternity. Now, Carolina has actually been pretty good on defense this season, and despite allowing 37 against the Seahawks last week, they're slowing down opposing QBs, which makes me wonder what's got them playing so well despite a shitty offense. I wonder if there are any defensive coordinators who have experience in that department. Oh yeah, it's Ejiro Evero, who called the plays for the Broncos last year and might be the only reason the Broncos weren't 0-17 in 2022. Too bad we replaced him with the guy who takes good defenses and turns them into this. Minnesota is going to win this game, but if they don't, they should really explore trading Kirk Cousins to the Jets before it's too late. The longer the Jets start Zach Wilson, the further they get away from contention. As for the Panthers, they're all in on evaluating Bryce Young for this year and next. Even if he's bad, like really, really bad, you can't give up on him after a year because of the trade haul you gave up to get him. And even if you wanted to, like I mentioned, there's no first-round pick to replace him in 2024. Carolina has the most hope out of these 4 winless teams because the quarterback of the future may very well be on their roster. He just needs time. He also needs an offensive line. The Panthers' line in pass protection this season ranks dead ass last. They've allowed 60 QB pressures. 60! And since Andy Dalton played the last game, you can't pin that all on Bryce Young. If that pace continues, it will be the worst in NFL history. Just look at this chart showing the rate at which they give up pressure. Sure, that's actually a chart for tropical storm Ophelia, but you trusted that I was showing you a football chart. You should trust me as much as Bryce Young trusts his line. There should be hope for Bryce Young, who is indeed young. Denver and Minnesota, well, they have aging quarterbacks playing well, and the other, they got Justin Fields, who's equally young and bad at football right now. The fact that all 4 of these 0-win teams are playing each other is actually a godsend for football fans. Embrace the tank. Now, thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. Who knows? If you hang around, maybe the Broncos will give up 71 points to the Bears.